Cardinal Nation, what's happening? Listen, I want to thank you. That's right. I want to thank you, right, for tuning in for another amazing episode of What the Cardinal Call podcast. Why? Because we are the classroom podcast that is designed to interview industry experts and leaders and gain their insight, aka golden nuggets, so we can help take your leadership and your learning, that's right, to the next level immediately. But before we jump into anything today, this is what I need you to do. Go out wherever you see us, on YouTube, on any of our social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment out there about us. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, how we're doing, how we're changing your life, and how we've helped take your leadership and your learning to the next level. Typically, right around now, I'll start off with a great quote, but today I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to gather the theme of what all of our faculty and staff always tell many of our, what I call WBPs, our working business professionals, our adult learners, our learners connected to the OLL program. That's right. We tell them to go be great. So on behalf of all of the faculty and staff connected to the OLL, the Organizational Leadership and Learning Program, I'm going to tell you, go be great. That's right. So listen, I want you to join me all month long as we celebrate our Black History Month edition. And I've even got the opportunity to round up a great co-host and the one and the only Dr. Randy Whetstone. He's an amazing individual. He's a great co-host, and he's also the leader of our diversity, inclusion, community engagement, and equity degree track. Listen, if you think that you want to be a DEI expert, this is the degree program that you have to get enrolled in. This is the one that's going to be the game changer, the life changer, the career projector. You got it. So listen, tune in all month or our Black History Month edition of the Cardinal Call podcast with Dr. Randy Whetstone, because we've been lined up some amazing guests who are going to do some great things. So listen, you know how I always tell you, that's right. It's that time of the day. It's that time. It's that time. It's that time. I need you to go get your pens, your pencils, your notepads, your memo boards, your iPads, whatever it is that you're going to take notes with on today's podcast, because the guest today is going to drop some boom golden nuggets, and you want to be able to write them down, to recall them, so that you can go make changes in your career, in your life, in your industry immediately. Listen, this is what I need you to do. Go get that as we head into the classroom to learn from what today's amazing guest.
Cardinal Nation, we are back. We are back. We are back, and better than ever before. Listen, Cardinal Nation, this is what it's all about. We have, Dr. Whetstone is an amazing guy. Just FYI, I know a lot of people credit him. They seen him in the classroom, had him as a professor, but Dr. Whetstone is leading our diversity, inclusion, community engagement, and equity track. He's teamed up with me today. He said he has some great contacts that he wanted to bring on the podcast for Black History Month. So Cardinal Nation, that's right. This is the Black History Month edition of the Cardinal Call podcast, sponsored by Dr. Randy Whetstone and the DICE degree program. Dr. Whetstone, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, Dr. Owens. I tell you, each episode, it's hard to follow you. You throw something new in there. This week now I'm a sponsor, so now I just have to live up to that in this episode. But just happy to be here. Looking forward to our esteemed guest and having a good conversation.
Most definitely. And our esteemed guest that Dr. Whetstone had, listen, Dr. Whetstone has done all the legwork. He's gotten all the guests for our Black History Month. So shout out to Dr. Whetstone. And as you see on the screen right there, we listen, I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he got her away. I don't know if there was a bribe involved. Hopefully not. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully it's just great connections. I know it's good work. You see it right there. She's on the screen. She's the one, the only, the venerable Representative Attica Scott. Representative Scott, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Owens. Thank you as well, Dr. Whetstone. Good to see you again. And no, there was no bribery involved. It's about connections and relationships, right?
Yes. I mean, I know Dr. Whetstone is the most upstanding individual, and all of the students who have had Dr. Whetstone, Cardinal Nation has seen Dr. Whetstone. They know he's the most upstanding guy. We know it was a horrible joke gone bad, but yes, you're here. He's here. Let's get started, because this is what we do. Everyone here wants to learn some great nuggets, some golden nuggets we'll talk a little bit of leadership. We'll talk a little bit of learning, but we're definitely going to talk about some DICE questions and Black History Month questions with Representative Attica Scott, just to get her insight and her perspective. So let's start it off like I always start off with the number one question that I ask every guest on the podcast. Representative Attica Scott, how do you define leadership?
That is an excellent question. And I will start by saying you may hear my dogs in the background. So, charge that to my heart and my home, because I am at home after getting back from Frankfurt. And for me, leadership is about listening. It's about taking direction from the people that you serve, particularly if you're a public servant. Leadership means showing up when people need you to show up, speaking out when people need you to speak out, standing up even when you might be the only one standing up in support of or against an issue. Leadership means that you not only lead, but you're looking for what leadership qualities exist in other people and helping to bring that out of them, because I believe that we all have power and voice and ability to lead. We just lead in different ways and in different places and spaces.
I love it. Leadership is listening. Listen, I've had 30 some odd guests on the podcast. No one has said listening. So definitely shout out and attribute. You have a unique definition. The point goes to Representative Attica Scott for the leadership question for the day. But aside from listening, how would you describe, this is my next question, right? How would you describe your leadership style, or what is your leadership style?
Oh, that's a good question. And it probably is one that other people around me could answer better than me. But what I will say is that I believe in supporting other people in developing their leadership. I'm one of those people who I'm clear that those of us with positions and titles are here because of the people around us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're here because of the people that we lift up and amplify. It's really of no credit to us and ourselves if we're honest about it. It's a credit to the community, the tribe, the team, the people that we've intentionally had as part of our lives, or we've been part of their lives. So for me, it's my leadership style is, how can I draw out of you? How can I pull out of you your leadership so that you can glow, so that you can grow?
That's nice. That's nice. I like that. I like that. Support and development and helping other people grow. Oh, you're such a nice leader. But let me ask you one more question connected to that, and that's this. Who do you think best exemplifies your definition of leadership, whether it's listening, whether it's supporting, whether it's developing, whether it's helping others grow? Who are a couple people maybe that you look up to, or that you've looked up to, or that you've read about that kind of exemplify that the best?
I appreciate that question. And I will just say to your previous comment about me being a nice leader, I appreciate hearing that from you, because I will tell you that I've got some colleagues in Frankfurt who would probably disagree, because I also, as a leader, don't put up with a lot of mess. And particularly when I think about where I live in the West End of Louisville, I'm not going to be nice when people are excluding us or trying to run over us. So my goal as a leader is to be real and to look out for the people who have called me to serve. So I appreciate that coming from you. And I'll also say I got some colleagues in Frankfurt who would be like, I don't know. But what do I think best exemplifies your definition of leadership? I actually think I may have just answered that in part in responding to your comment, that for me, what exemplifies leadership is the ability to, let me give Frankfurt as an example, the ability to be a no vote on an issue when everybody else may be a yes,
right?
Because your life experience is different, right? We're not all the same. And I'm definitely different from most of my colleagues in Frankfurt, a different lived experience, a different experience right now as someone who lives and works and worships and raised my children in the West End of Louisville. So I'm going to see issues differently. So to me, to exemplify leadership means that sometimes I'm going to have to step out there, and I'm going to have to take the criticism that goes with stepping out there and maybe being the lone no vote on an issue. But I also know that means that I get to go home and face the people that I serve and know that I did right by them.
No doubt, no doubt. Dr. Weston, you got a leadership question for Representative Scott?
Yeah, I think the point that you just made about, the people who you're representing, and having shared experiences with them. I think that's so profound, because when you describe leadership as listening, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the space that you're in, I mean, it's imperative to listen, because so many decisions are made for the people. And they hopefully should be made for the betterment of the people and of all people. And so as leaders, if we're not listening to those who we're serving, are we really meeting their best interests? Are we doing a disservice to them? And that really matters. So I love that you mentioned that about listening, and then tying that into the importance of those in the West End community of Louisville. Continuing on with that, how would you describe the West End and its development over the last few years, from just your experiences and the work that you have done?
Thank you for that question. I love the West End of Louisville. I am probably one of its biggest champions. And I know that we have within us the people and the power to transform the West End of Louisville to one where we all get to thrive, right? Like right now, we're trying to survive, but I want to see us thrive, and we're going to get there. I know that we're going to get there because we're going to get there together. And that's what I see in the West End. I see community, I see family, I see us trying to do our best with what little has been sent our way. And I love that I'm seeing more and more people, particularly young people, who are becoming more civically educated and more civically engaged, to say, all right, if we really want some things to move in the West End of Louisville, we got to go local, state, and federal, right? You got to go to the school board. You got to go to the council, the mayor, the state house, and Congress to get things done in and for your community. So I'm hopeful from what I'm seeing happening here in the West End of Louisville.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of that. It takes a lot of hope. When we think about Black History Month, which really isn't just a month, it's a lifestyle, right? It's something to celebrate and cherish, all day, every day. But when we think about, so many great Black leaders over the course of time in this country, a lot of them were inspired by hope, right? That the work that they were doing, they always was foreseeing what could be, irregard of what the current situation has been. And so, we just constantly, applaud you and thank you for that leadership, because we need leaders who have that hope, who see into the future, and then they know, even after their time may be over and gone, that the work that they have established is continuing to live on as well. So I think that is excellent.
Thank you.
Yes, keep getting into some good trouble,
That's
Representative
right.
Scott. Get some good trouble. Get into some
You know
good
what? I'm
trouble.
going to have to bring out my face mask this weekend that says "Good Trouble." You just inspired me.
Yes, this is what I'm talking about. But I want to pivot just a little bit before we get into the meat and potatoes of our podcast today. And I just want to ask one question connected to learning. So marketing expert Seth Godin, some people call him, he's kind of maybe become more of a leadership expert maybe today. And he states that people need less mentors and more heroes. And by heroes, he's saying that people that, mentors are probably people you can touch. A hero is
Mhm,
somebody maybe you can't touch. So,
mhm.
what do you think about that statement? Do you think as a person, as a leader, do you think you have heroes and mentors? Do you think you need more heroes, less mentors, more mentors, less heroes? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh, we need more mentors and fewer heroes. And I say that because heroes are people that we put on this pedestal. And when they disappoint us or they fail us, that hurts us to our core.
Right.
And it also puts people in a position that they probably really shouldn't be in, right? Because we're all fallible.
Hmm.
And so I think that, at least in my experience as a mentor, and also having been mentored and continue to be mentored, that I want people who are real. I want people who have flaws, who I can go to them and learn some lessons from their mistakes. Rather than see them as people who are condemned because we thought that they were perfection. And that's
Right.
oftentimes what we think of when we think of heroes. We think of perfection. And so we need more mentors. And by that I mean at every level. Oftentimes I think people when they envision mentors, they're thinking of something only young people need. I need mentors, and I'm going to always need mentors because I'm always in this state of learning and listening. And I want people who have messed up, who I can go to and say, well, what'd you do when you messed up? You know, what was that like for you? What lessons did you learn? And what advice would you give me moving forward, so that I don't make those same mistakes?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I understand 100%. You know, my pastor says, he says, how does he say it? I want to be, or want to get as close to him as possible. But the paraphrase is, you don't have to try everything to know that something doesn't work. So his example is, he's like, I don't have to try crack to know I don't want to do drugs, right? I don't need a mentor or a hero to figure that out, right? I can look and say, okay, yeah, you made some bad choices and some bad decisions. I don't need to go down that road. And I appreciate that. Yeah, because that is, I think you're right. I think the more I think about that, people probably do need less heroes and more mentors. Because you're right, heroes are probably sometimes put on that false pedestal. But
Mhm.
now we've gotten all that out the way. We're gonna get down to the meat and potatoes of why you accepted the invitation for today. So I'm gonna let Dr. Whetstone take over about on our dice and our Black History Month questions. Dr. Whetstone. You're on.
Absolutely. So, first question I want to ask around the idea of Black History Month and DICE, and to spell out what DICE is, it stands for diversity, inclusion, community engagement, and equity. And so, how is Black History Month expressed and embodied in the space that you work in?
Okay, so I'm going to focus on Frankfurt. I do work a full-time job, which is absolutely amazing because it focuses on human rights and social justice. So it's like, yes, that's exactly where I want to be. But I will focus on Frankfurt. And I will say that for me, it is a combination of people who truly want to lift up Black history and the people who want to attack it. So I'm in this position where both is happening, y'all. Both of those things are happening. You
Mhm.
have people who this month will rise up on the House floor during session and give a Black History Month vignette, and will oftentimes focus on Black history for Kentucky. Who are the Kentucky people we want to lift up, which is vitally important.
Mhm.
And and yet at the same time, there are 138 members of the state legislature and only 2 Black women. So there's still a lot of work to do. To your point, Dr. Whetstone, earlier of the fact that yes, we have this month where we celebrate, honor, and recognize Black history, but we do that all year round. So this is constant work that has to be done. Then on the other hand, you have the people who want to attack Black history, who literally have filed 3 pieces of legislation to say, basically you can't teach the history of racism. You can't teach the reality of this country. You can't teach about genocide. You can't teach that there were wrongs that were done to whole groups of people. You can't teach that. So for me, when I think about Black History Month, I think about the fact that we're in the midst of Black History Month and we have these 3 bills that we're about to face in the state legislature.
Mhm. I have a follow-up question to that. So, if we had to explain things to the younger generation, right? Generation Z, Generation A, Alpha that's emerging and upcoming. If they had to raise the question and they said, Representative Scott, I hear what you're saying about the lack of Black women represented in the state. I hear about kind of this dismantling of Black history in Kentucky. And they said, why? Why? What is the reason? What would your answer be to them?
The reason why there are so few,
Yeah. Hmm.
it's by design. So it's difficult to run for office if you are not wealthy. It's difficult to run for office when you are a Black person or other person of color because you rarely get the support of the institutions and systems that tend to try to run things politically. And for many of us, we work full-time jobs, part-time jobs, are doing elder care or child care or both. And so those are many barriers that we face. But we also face those institutional, systemic, and structural barriers to being able to run for office and to be supported when we run and when we serve. So we have to make a decision as a people. If we're going to support someone running for office, it's going to be actual real support. And when you are elected, yes, there are going to be things we disagree on. We, as we should, right? Again, life experiences are different. We are not all the same, but we should also make sure that when people need our support, we support them. Because I will tell you, to serve in the state legislature is not easy as a Black woman. I hope that I took on the brunt of the ugliness so that, Representative Stevenson doesn't have to do that, or Representative Kulkarni, who's the only Indian immigrant serving, or anyone else who comes after us. I hope that the fact that I was the first Black woman elected in almost 2 decades means that they don't have to deal with what I had to deal with.
Mhm. What would you say to a young Black girl who would aspire to be in your shoes one day? What would you say to her to overcome these obstacles, systemic problems that you mentioned? What would you say to give that inspiration and hope?
I hope for young Black girls who are tuning in that you reach out to me. I would love to have you spend a day with me in the state capitol so you see what it's like for yourself, because that's important. We don't often get those opportunities, and we don't get them from people who look like us because Black women didn't exist in the state legislature for 2 decades. So spend a day with me, seeing what it's like, asking me those tough and important questions. Take advantage of the many training programs that exist. For me, I went through the first class of Emerge Kentucky, which trains Democratic women to run for office. There's a Republican equivalent. There are programs for young women, and in particular, young Black women who want to run for office. Take advantage of those. Get involved now in tracking and following bills. So, for example, I filed the Crown Act to end discrimination based on natural hair. If that's something that's important to you as a young woman, follow that bill through the legislature and see where it goes. And also get involved in advocating for that bill. You have the power and voice to say to your classmates, this is an issue that's important to me. I would love your support. Make sure that your state representative is signed on as a co-sponsor. There is so much that elementary school kids can do today. You don't have to be able to vote to have political power. You have the ability to send a letter, send an email, make a phone call to your elected official to let them know what's important to you. We represent everybody in our districts, not only people who are registered to vote or who voted for us.
Absolutely. So, my next question, I want to think about politics from like a national view. So, you can approach this from a historical perspective, or even here of recent times. What have you learned of emergent Black leaders in politics? What have you learned about them and their work?
What I have learned, what I have seen is that in these past few years, there has been more amplification of, first and foremost, for me, Black women and our leadership. That has been so important to me as a Black woman, because it's not something that, when I think about Congress, has been there for us. We've been in small numbers, but we're increasing in our numbers, and our issues are being amplified. We're not shrinking. We're speaking up, and we're saying we want you to address Black maternal health. We want you to address the Crown Act. You have to address issues of qualified immunity. Like, we're speaking up on these issues in ways that haven't been done before, because we didn't necessarily have the numbers to be able to collectively join together and raise our voices. So I'm seeing that happen. I'm also seeing that the president and vice president are being pushed to lift up issues like supporting historically Black colleges and universities. I'm a proud HBCU graduate. Yesterday, I spent part of my day with Kentucky State University, right here in our Commonwealth. And it's important that we have people at the national level who understand the value and need for HBCUs. That isn't coming out of benevolence. That's coming because Black people and Black women who are in political positions have pushed the administration to pay attention to those issues. So I appreciate what I'm seeing, but I also know that we need more, right? You've got more than 400 members of Congress, and 26 of them are Black women. That's less than 10%. That is not a representative democracy.
Absolutely. I want to transition now to our focus as a program. So, a large part of our audience includes just leaders from so many different fields and disciplines, from education to government to healthcare, to the nonprofit sector. The list goes on. And so, we've really made it our goal to emphasize diversity, inclusion, community engagement, and equity, again, using this acronym DICE. And so when I think of dice, I really do think of kind of a dice roll, a crapshoot, right? That you never know what you might get, but whatever you get in the workplace, you have to address it. So when you hear dice, what does this look like to you?
That is a good question because we're hearing at least the diversity, equity, inclusion part. We hear that a lot. And I appreciate that you have added community engagement because that's vital. So for me, when I think about diversity, I often think of, making sure the program brochure has a lot of different kind of faces on it. So it looks welcoming and inviting, but there may not be a whole lot of depth there. That may not be actually, what it looks like in practice when you get into the workplace. For me, when I think about equity, I'm thinking about justice and fairness and acknowledging that no, we didn't all start in the same place. And no, we don't all have the same opportunities. But what are we going to do to make sure that people can thrive? What are we going to do to make sure that we address the institutional, systemic, and structural barriers that exist? It has to be more than a talking point. It has to be action. And then when I think about inclusion, to me, that's being intentional in making sure that the people who have been intentionally left out and left behind, intentionally oppressed, are part of decision making at every single level in every single place. And that is, for me, important when I think about policies, practices, and procedures. Everything has to include those voices. And in all of it, there has to be community engagement. And that, to me, is the piece that often gets left out when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We leave out the community engagement piece. And that's why we see when saviors in Frankfurt think that they are passing legislation that we Black folks in the West End should praise and worship and be happy about, we push back against because you didn't include us, which means you left out big whole issues and gaps because you don't live where we live and you don't know what we know. So that's what diversity looks like. Look what I did for y'all. But there certainly wasn't any equity or inclusion or community engagement.
Absolutely. If you could foresee into the next 25 or 50 years, what is it that you expect or want to see happen in the Black community?
That one is a really deep question for me to ponder. So for me, first and foremost, in the next 25 to 50 years, I want to see Black folks thriving. I want to see us um, not having to continue to beg for dignity and humanity and respect and value. Instead, and I want it to be a given. I want it to be a given. We shouldn't have to keep showing up in protest and getting arrested because we want justice. It should be a given. So that's, my hope for the next 25 to 50 years. My hope is also to see that our communities are not intentionally, our neighborhoods are not intentionally segregated from, and I'm speaking of Louisville, from the rest of the city. Right. And that's what we have right now. We literally have a physical divide at 9th Street. And it's been that way from the time I was born till today. We have a physical, literal divide between the West End and the East End. And so we have to make sure that over these next 25 to 50 years that we break down those divides. And at the same time, while we're breaking down those divides, we're building up Black-owned businesses, right? We're building Black wealth. We're building Black ownership. We're building Black political power. And we're pushing for, and we will have achieved a curriculum that reflects Black history fully, that reflects Indigenous history fully. And that it doesn't begin with the enslavement of our people, but instead it goes back to when we were kings and queens on the continent, right? So that's what my hope is and my vision for the next 25 to 50 years for us. There's a lot more that goes with that, but for me, if we have those components, everything else that I'm hoping for will happen.
I love that. Well, at this point, we've talked about a lot of the tough topics and we like to have a lot of fun on the podcast. And so Dr. Owens, is the master of that. So let's transition to our next segment. Dr. Owens.
Hey, listen, we do like to have fun on the podcast, but I was so ingratiated in that conversation. I was hoping y'all wasn't going to stop and keep going. But let me ask this question before we get into that. So, Representative Scott, you mentioned that like if a young woman, was interested in maybe figuring out how this whole political process landscape works to job shadow you, how does somebody go about doing that? Is there an internship program? Is it on a website? Do we got to Google you and Facebook? Is someone going to blow up your inbox somewhere along the way? How does that work? What's that process look like?
Dr. Owens, thanks so much for bringing me back to that, right? Because that's an important follow-up. So if you want to spend a day with me, and it's not only for young women, anyone who wants to spend the day with me, you can email me at attica.scott@lrc.ky.gov. Again, attica.scott@lrc.ky.gov. And you can call me at 502-564-8100. You can also go to the website, legislature.ky.gov, which I advise anyone, bookmark that website. It's a pretty good website. If you don't know who your elected official is, that's okay. You can go to that website, put in your address and find out. You can track bills from that. You can find out when our committees meet, all that good stuff. We do have a PAGE program. So that program is really for young people in 3rd through 12th grade to spend a day as a legislative page on the House floor. I would love to have people from District 41 do that. Young people need that opportunity and experience. We do have legislative interns that come from our colleges and universities across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. I currently have 2 from the political science department at the University of Louisville. So at this point, I'm not able to take on any more for this legislative session. But there are, not as a legislative intern, but you can definitely work with me on other issues that I'm working on as a legislator. And let's see, what else what other opportunities? Those are the main ones. And then shadowing me, spending a day with me in the state capitol is just something I do as a representative, because I feel like it's important, because I know I didn't have those opportunities.
Nice. Thank you for number one. Thank you for giving all that information. You are the first guest to put out emails and phone numbers, and I'm sure Cardinal Nation will reach out to you. But what is? I remember we had Yvonne Smith on from One West, and she was explaining to us, gave me a lot of great detailed information about the West End of Louisville from a numbers game and a numbers perspective. But let me ask you this question: if you had to rank or prioritize, some of your top issues. So let's just say your top 3, or your top 3. What would you say are some of your top 3 issues that we need to be aware of facing or affecting or impacting the West End of Louisville?
Good question. It's tough to prioritize because there are a lot that I would want to have at the top. But I will say, for me, especially as a mother of 2 young people, that we've got to prioritize how we get our young people to stay rooted in the West End of Louisville. How do we do that? What do we need to set up and maintain for that to happen? What's missing in the West End that makes young people like them want to leave? And what do we need to do to make sure that we keep young people in the West End of Louisville, because they're the heartbeat of our 9 neighborhoods, and we need them in order to be able to thrive. So that's one of the top issues for me. The other is, as I think about economic development and those kinds of opportunities, we have to make sure that we're prioritizing community engagement, to your point, Dr. Whetstone, so that people, one, are aware of what opportunities are coming down the pipeline, but 2, that they can be involved in the job creation, that they can be involved in their small business having an opportunity to be part of the actual physical construction, as well as, hiring people and, the HR, the human resources aspect of it, every single aspect. That has to be a priority for us, because we know that there's a lot of interest and focus on the West End right now, but we have to be mindful that that's not all led by people who live in the West End of Louisville. And to me, that's important, because otherwise you take away our agency. You take away our power and voice when we're not leading what's happening in our own community, in our own backyards. And then I will say that the third thing that to me has to be a priority is connected to that, which is how are we addressing issues of affordable, sustainable, supportive housing? How are we addressing issues of a robust public transportation system to make sure that people can get to and from wherever they need to go? We're not there yet in the West End of Louisville, because that hasn't been a priority historically. It needs to be a priority now.
Okay. Now that we have hit your top priority list, everybody got their marching orders. You know what to do. You know how to make it happen. And if you don't, we got the information how you can get it to Representative Scott, so you can be in support of making sure this happens. So now let's transition. We've had the hard stuff. We got to the meat and potatoes. So let's end on a little light note. Let's have a little fun before we let you go, Representative Scott, before you go change Kentucky for the better. So This is a session we like to call rapid fire. Just got 5 quick questions. First thing that comes to your mind, just let us know what it is, and that's how we'll do rapid fire. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's go. Here we go. First question, rapid fire. If you could pick one word to describe your life so far, what would it be and why?
Blessed. What else is there to say?
Okay. I like that answer. It's a popular answer. So we'll go around so we'll pass that. We'll move you on to question number 2. Question number 2. What are 3 non-negotiable characteristics that anyone on your team, tribe, whatever, they have to have?
My tribe has to have a deep love of community and of people. My tribe has to respect and value agency and voice of people who are often left out and left behind. And my tribe has to have a deep commitment to maintaining values of justice and fairness and integrity.
It's hard to be on your team, I can tell you that.
It is.
But I love it. It's a great answer. Moving on. Question number 3. Really easy. What is your favorite dessert?
Real good key lime pie. Has to be light, not heavy key lime pie on an absolutely delicious graham cracker crust.
I'm not a key lime pie guy, but I'm assuming it tastes well.
It does.
Here we go. Question number 4. If you could do your career over again, what industry would you have worked in?
You know what? I would not do it over again. I would be a coordinator with Kentucky Jobs with Justice, fighting for worker rights and immigrant justice. I would be a professor at Bellarmine and JCTC, teaching about social justice. I would work at county health rankings and roadmaps and pushing health equity as we build a culture of health across the country. And I would, continue to do the work that I'm doing right now.
I love it. Great answer. So definitely we're going to come down to number 5. It's the last one. Now this one's kind of deep. It may require a little bit of thought, but here we go. Rapid fire. Last question. Number 5 on the blocks. Here we go. If you could sit with your 13-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Ooh, I would say, Attica, you are going to be all right. That what you're going through right now will pass. It will be hard. You're going to have some bumps along the way, but you will get through it. And you would be better for it. So remember that. Love yourself, and don't take no mess from nobody.
I love it. Great answer to give to your 13-year-old self. Listen, you're going to be all right, and don't take no mess from nobody. I love it. Okay, this is the last. So rapid fire is over, but I have one fun question I do like to ask. I changed it up last time, but I'm gonna go back to my original. So that way, so I know Cardinal Nation, they be like, why'd you change it up? You were so good at it. But this is the question. Last one. If your life was the title of a book, made up or real, because I see a lot of books behind you. So title of a book, made up or real, what would it be and why?
Good question. Okay. All right. Look, I said, let me look at a book. Brown. Oh, you can't see it too bright, but it's called Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. And I will say Brown Girl Dreaming because that's exactly who I am, what I am, and what I hope for other brown girls, that you get to keep dreaming. Your dreams are radical and revolutionary as they should be, and you have every right for them to be, and keep working on those dreams.
Great answer. And you had a visual. I'm telling you, Representative Scott, you killing this podcast today. You're resetting the bar. I gotta tell everybody, if you ain't bringing the energy like Representative Scott, we don't even know we're gonna interview you no more. But this is my last question, and I definitely leave it to our guests to answer this question. This is our final thought, right? What is your wise counsel that if you could stand on top of a mountain and shout it out for the world to hear, what would that message be?
Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives Matter. I love it. Great way to end the segment. Dr. Whetstone, do you have anything before we let Representative Scott get out of here so she can go change the world?
I just want to say thank you. Just thank you for your time and your willingness to just enlighten us. I leave from this conversation feeling better, feeling hopeful and encouraged. And so thank you for the work that you do and that you continue to do. And, it's all about us coming together, in the Black community to make the difference that is needed and that we want to see. So thank you again.
I appreciate you both.
No problem. Representative Scott, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. She left it all on the table. If we had, well, I guess I do have a mic, so but I'm not gonna drop it though. But that's the mic drop on the day. She gave us all the golden nuggets that we need to do to be great, to do better, to improve our community, to improve the Black community, to improve the West End of Louisville. Representative Scott, before you got here, last thing, could you just give your email, your phone number, and the website one more time, please?
I certainly can. It's Attica, Attica .Scott, SCOTT at lrc.ky.gov. That's short for Legislative Research Commission, Kentucky and Government. Attica.Scott at lrc.ky.gov. Give me a ring, 502-564-8100, and bookmark legislature.ky.gov.
Mic drop, boom, there it is. Representative Scott, we appreciate you. Have a great day and stay safe.
You too.
All right. What can I tell you? We had an amazing guest today. I told you she was going to blow your mind. I told you our guest was going to give you some of those boom golden nuggets. And boy, did she ever give you some golden nuggets. Let's talk about some of the golden nuggets she talked about. One, leaders are listeners, right? If you're a leader, you got to be able to listen. Two, right? What else? I took my notes. I got it right here. The other thing she said was, you are going to be all right. That was something she would say if she could go back in time and tell herself. So I'm going to tell you, no matter what's going on in your world, what's going on in your life, you are going to be all right. And then how can I say it any other way? It's been a theme for a long time. We've seen it throughout the pandemic and COVID. It's just that Black Lives Matter. And they do all, and we don't want to confuse that with any other message out there. We just want it to be known that Black Lives Matter. So listen, the great stories that I want to take away from today is this, right? The best story is this. When she gave up the name of the book, and the book was Brown Girl Dreaming. Listen, Representative Scott was at one point in time a young lady, and she was dreaming, and look at her now. And that's all I say. It starts with a dream. It starts with a dream of completing a degree. It starts with a dream of being great. It starts with a dream of doing something phenomenal. And listen, you can do it too. Just keep dreaming, or just start dreaming, and then, enroll in the OLL program and watch your dreams come true. I believe it. I know it can happen. Watch it happen. Listen, to learn more about this program, this is what you want to do. Go to uofl.me/podcast-OLL. While you're on there, you'll get some great information. You can even check out the amazing dice track that Dr. Randy Whetstone is leading up for the OLL program. Listen, I know today we took your leadership and your learning to the next level. There's no doubt in my mind. Dr. Whetstone had some great questions. Representative Attica Scott, she gave some phenomenal answers and some great stories. So listen, this is what I need you to do. Go out there, download, like, and subscribe wherever you see us on the web. YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Spotify. We're everywhere. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're there. Go ahead. Tell us and let us know how you feel and what you're thinking. Listen, like we always say when we end every podcast around here, you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you cannot count the number of apples in the seeds, because when you teach, you never know how many lives you'll influence. And I know we influence some great lives today. Listen, Cardinal Nation, this is what I need you to do. I need you to keep leading. I need you to keep learning, and I need you to keep influencing. Listen, I need you to join Cardinal Nation. So when you got some time, check us out on the web, uofl.me/podcast-OLL. Again, uofl.me/podcast-OLL. So listen, until next week, this is what I want you to do. I need you to take care and stay safe.